All right. Let's talk Wonder Woman finally. Good God. Sorry for the gong show. I know exactly. Now I know what the hell I was doing wrong. In any event, guys, let's talk Wonder Woman. Spike, uh, share me your initial thoughts when you went into this movie. What were your expectations and were they met?
My expectations were actually pretty different from the movie, but I think I was expecting it. It was a politically themed movie and stuff. I went in. I had a good old time. I didn't see any politics at all, and I think it was a refreshing type of comic book hero movie because it's more like in the old days. It's like a re-envisioning of a Linda Carter TV show Wonder Woman type of plot. It has like this charm, like this Richard Donner Superman charm, and it was very fun, and it wasn't the typical sludge fest. I
Uh,
really liked it.
yeah, it actually, I was surprised. I went in, I had very low expectations for this movie. I thought it was going to be terrible. I knew what the plot was, generally speaking. And and by the way, I should give a warning to people. We are going to be talking spoilers in this review. This is a spoiler review. And just so you know, yeah, if you haven't seen the movie yet, you might want to not watch this review. We're gonna break down and analyze the movie a little bit here. But in terms of the plot of this movie really had a ridiculous plot. Like the plot point in this movie, I thought was not going to work. The idea of a wishing stone, everybody being granted their magical wish. I just thought it was kind of nonsense, and I didn't think that Patty Jenkins would be able to make it work. But I was wrong. This was actually a feel-good movie. I thought that it worked. I thought the campiness of the movie in parts, the harkening back to the Superman movie, that sort of had a Superman movie vibe to it in parts that I thought really worked well. And I even thought that they tweaked the special effects a little bit to make it seem a little bit campy, and yet somehow it worked, and I was just really surprised by how much I enjoyed the movie. Is there any particular part of the movie that stood out the most for you, Spike?
Not a particular scene, though. I really like the middle set piece where they are, in this car fight in Cairo. But in general, what I enjoy the most is Gal Gadot and Chris Pine's chemistry. I really like how the pair work, and I think Gal Gadot is just as good as Wonder Woman as Linda Carter was. They're just filled with charm, and I watch anything with them. I mean, I'm not really a Zack Snyder fan, but I'm gonna go watch the Justice League Snyder cut.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really surprised. Uh that chemistry between Chris Pine and Gal Gadot, that really worked. In fact, that was the high point of the for me. And and actually Ed Brewer makes a point that Gal seems to have become a better actress, and I actually agreed with that. There was that scene at the end of the near the end of the movie where inevitably, because of the way the plot progresses, Wonder Woman Diana has to say bye to Steve for one final time again. It really hit me emotionally. They really played that scene well. The dialogue was absolutely excellent, and it really worked here. And this really plays well into some of the themes of the movie that we'll get to. But before we get to the theme, Spike, I want to ask your opinion about the setting. Do you think that the 1980s was the appropriate setting for this movie? Do you think that worked well? What was your impression of the setting and the 80s theme in general?
I really like the ambience, and one of the things I thought about when right immediately after I watched it is that they were not relying on nostalgia by putting the hits from the 80s, or filling the screen with references and stuff. And I thought that was great because the movie was standing alone on its own 2 feet. and I think it really worked. And this is something that I have been thinking it was missing in DC movies, that its world is it's shiny and bright and worth saving. It's a nice place to live in, because if you go by, for example, the Suicide Squad ambience, it's like if they destroy it or not, it doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah. 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 I just, it's so where I think the setting really played well was when it's juxtaposed against Steve Trevor's character. You know, Chris Pine played Steve Trevor so well. His sense of wonderment of the future. This is a guy who was killed during World War I, and he died for a dream. He died so that there could be a better world, and he believed that Diana, Wonder Woman, could hearken in that better world, and he was so happy. Chris Pine played that so well. I mean, he was blown away. He had a sense of wonder about everything, from the clothes to the vehicles, to the coffee maker, to the jets in the sky, to the architecture, to garbage cans. I mean, to motorcycles. He had a sense of wonder about him, and he always looked like he was just amazed that he was actually there. And the fact that that was the 80s, that it it played with so many themes so well. That sense of wonderment that the future really is there, for Steve Trevor, and it made me appreciate how much we have, because Steve Trevor had so little, and of course he died young in war. And the fact that movie played so well, it made me appreciate what we all have, because especially juxtaposed in the 1980s, where greed was the primary factor. Um,
Yeah, it's a different type of society, and I think it works well, and it mixes a couple of literary plot devices, which would be, the fish out of water. In this case, it would be Strip Trevor. In the first Wonder Woman film was actually Wonder Woman, and it adds up the monkey's paw, story type, and it does it very well, and it does it in a positive light. And that kind of story usually is never portrayed in such a shiny, positive way. In the original story, it's a tragedy actually.
yeah. What's the tragedy? What's the tragedy?
In the original Monkey's Paw, um, the the guy dies because he wished for 200 pounds. So he dies, and he gets the widow gets 200 pounds of from the company where he died, because he died in a work accident.
Right.
And they wish for their kid who died in the war to come back. Somebody knocks the door. That's the last scene. The wife wishes they never, had the wish, and it all disappears.
Yeah. That's actually a good reference. Because I wasn't familiar with that monkey paw reference, so I'm sort of glad you mentioned that. I want to let's talk about some of the other actors now. What are some of the actors that stood out the most? I was actually fairly impressed with Maxwell Lord. I thought he actually worked fairly well. Mark McKeever disagrees with me. He's used to a Maxwell Lord that is calculated, and this depiction was crazed. He wasn't a fan. What I find interesting in the movie, it's very different than the comic book version of Maxwell Lord. This was a Maxwell Lord that was very much deep in 80s lore of wanting wanting so much to be different than who he was, wanting to please his son out of a sense of desperation. He wanted to be a person that his son could look up to. And he he I thought that the way that he played it, the way that he actually wished to become that wishing stone itself, was just brilliantly done. And I note that Jeff Johns helped Patty Jenkins with the story on this. And I keep thinking that's probably a Jeff Johns contribution to the script, but I don't want to, with apologies to Patty Jenkins. But I really thought that worked well. How when Maxwell Lord became the wishing stone himself, that when you make a wish, Maxwell Lord, he determines what the price you pay is. And of course, the price that you usually play is that you got to give Maxwell Lord your money or your power. And I thought that was done very brilliantly in the script, and I thought that really worked, and it really played in well as the world began to fall apart because of all these people making their wishes. I thought Pedro Pascal really pulled that off. What do you think, Spike?
Yeah, I think Pedro Pascal was great, and I don't mind Maxwell Lord being an '80s businessman. That's something they actually did with Lex Luthor back in the day. The '80s was a time period where greed was at an all-time high. That's where basically modern corporatism was born, and it really fits in the theme of the movie, and it was acted brilliantly. And what you say about the themes that they use with Maxwell Lord, yes, they take this classic theme with his son and stuff, and they he's not longer a spy. He fits in perfectly in this ambience of the '80s we were talking about, and he does it with charm. And the other thing is that it's a very interesting take in the opposing force of a comic book movie, because he's not a villain in the way that he doesn't want to take over the world and stuff like that. I think that was a really interesting point in the movie.
Yeah, one of the and that plays into one of the themes that I thought was really strong in the movie is just that whole theme of ego versus being able to accept yourself. Everybody has a wish, and everybody wants their life to be better, and everybody has their wish. And of course, always be careful what you wish for, and you can't grant everybody's wishes at the same time. And it's interesting that the movie alludes to within its own mythology the destruction of the Mayans and the destruction of various cultures throughout history, linking them to the wishing stone. And it really makes a lot of sense that if everybody gets their heart's desire and wish at the same time, it could very well lead to destruction because you can't gain something without losing something in return. And that 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 whole man versus nature, Wonder Woman, at one point Maxwell Lord says to his son, never accept the limitations of nature, you know. Whereas Wonder Woman is all about nature. She's connected to the Mother Earth. And so Wonder Woman's about accepting what is, and Maxwell Lord is about trying to achieve what isn't yet, and is all about the illusion. And the themes here are so rich, and there are so many ways that you can dive into it. I was quite impressed with it. But is there any other actor that stood out for you, Spike, other than Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord?
Oh, I was gonna say that in the point you were making about the themes, I also like that mixing this plot with Pedro Pascal and the Chris Pine, Gal Gadot chemistry. That the powerful thing that comes from it is how the character where she's a kid and she doesn't realize, you know, she's cheating in this Olympian type of Amazon contest, and she doesn't understand why she can win just like that. She was the only kid in that Amazon tribe, so I'm guessing she was a little bit of a brat back there. But in the end, it's because of Steve Trevor that Wonder Woman learns that it doesn't matter how hard you want something if it's not right. And I think that character growth is something that really puts a lot of heart into the movie. About the actors, I mean, the whole cast was great. The main actors were all great. I think Kristen Kristen Wiig did a great job with her character, even if they are not analog to their comic book characters, because the only thing that the Kristen Wiig got from Cheetah from the comics was a name, basically. But I think they understood that material and what they were trying to do, and they did a great job. And Cheetah it's herself was cool as a villain because she's the one that to get her wish lost her humanity, and that's why she gets like the worst deal at the end.
Uh, yeah, I agree. One of the themes that united the beginning of the movie to the end is, and you mentioned it, and that great little actress that plays young Diana, her name is Lily Aspel. Lily Aspel, she's amazing as a young Diana. When she cheats to win the contest at the beginning of the movie, the theme, I think it was Antiope or her mother, Antiope or her mother Hippolyta says to her, no true hero is born of lies. And that's really the theme of the movie. As it moves forward, it becomes clear, because at the end of the movie, it's all about no true hero embracing those lies. And and the way that the way that all the that stone, it takes as much as it gives. So as much as it was giving people their it was feeding everyone's illusions, and it really, everything was a lie. And the cheetah
Ahorita no
herself,
puedo.
sorry,
Sorry about that.
no worries. uh and at the end there, when the cheetah, I found it interesting at the end that the whole world is renouncing their wish in order to save the world, but the cheetah was the one character who did not renounce her wish. And I thought that was rather interesting, that because she wasn't the most evil character per se, but the cheetah nonetheless, Barbara Minerva, still chose not to renounce her wish, and nothing was ever really made of that. And I think that's the ultimate tragedy at the end, that even though it was necessary to save the world, Barbara Minerva still, even with the world at stake, her narcissism and her choice was still to live, embrace the lie. But
Yeah, and 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 becoming,
sorry,
you
Spike,
know,
you're breaking up there, Spike.
perfect metaphor.
Uh-oh.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Are you ready for a war?
Sorry, Spike. Can you hear me, man? You're just broken up there. Okay, well, hopefully, perhaps maybe one of the things interfering with the stream now for Spike is that the broadcast waves are touching too many people, just like they did in the Wonder Woman 1984 movie.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you better now, Spike.
Am I coming through?
Yeah, you're coming through better now. Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, I was saying that Cheetah Minerva, how a character becomes to be Cheetah, shows the dehumanization, and it also provides a very adequate power level to to fight Wonder Woman. I always thought in the comics that usually the versions of Cheetah from the comics were not on the same level to fight Wonder Woman. It was always to me a very uneven match.
Yeah, and in the movie, they did a good job of depowering. They did a good job of depowering Wonder Woman, and it made sense because Wonder Woman wished Steve Trevor back. The price she paid was that she lost her power, and she was even prepared to do that. But as the movie progressed, it's interesting because I didn't know what was happening. At first, I criticized parts of the movie because Wonder Woman seemed to be weaker, and I was complaining, why is she so weak? And I didn't realize that she was actually losing. It took me a while to piece together how the Wishing Stone actually worked once it became Maxwell Lord. But I'd pieced it together near the end, and that actually worked very well. I thought for the most part, despite the fact that it dealt with an extraordinary comic book fantastical plot, I thought it actually worked and came together fairly well at the end, notwithstanding some of the fantastical elements.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the fun parts, that it's a very out there film, and it doesn't take itself so seriously because it knows it has like a strong message and strong characters portraying the message. I think that's why it works. And but I also think that's why some people are not gonna like it, because some people, from what I've seen in the comments and stuff, are expecting another movie more in tune of the the classical sludge fest. And I think it's a fairly fun, but at the same time fairly complex movie, and it has a good personal message, which is something that you don't always find in these types of comic book movies.
Yeah, well, let me ask you about that because as you said, this movie didn't have a lot of action scenes, and in fact, it is true that the action scenes, all of the action scenes, pretty much virtually all of them were in the preview. And it's a legitimate criticism to say that all the action is in the previews, and in that respect, it's a little bit misleading. But it is saved by having a good. This movie does have emotional gravitas, but if I got to tell you, my wife sort of got very bored with it very quickly. It's a 2.5 hour movie. It did drag on. I personally thought that Cheetah was overused. I didn't think that she was really necessary. I I was actually I didn't mind the cheetah, but I actually think this movie didn't need the cheetah in it to have the same type of emotional impact. I would almost think cheetah's in it just to sell toys. But it's let me ask you, Spike, point blank. Do you think this movie suffered from the lack of action scenes?
Suffered in the story department? I don't think so, because it's not an action movie. And you read the comics. Not every single page of the comic books is people throwing punches, and I think that's the impression most people have of comic books. And the other thing is that, yeah, I do agree that Cheetah was, I wouldn't say overused, but I think she was an excuse to have like a physical villain that Wonder Woman could punch, to have at least some fight in the third act, instead
Yeah,
of sorting it out with words with Maxwell Lord.
yeah, and I actually think I think that I think that they could have trimmed a lot of fat in this movie. There was a lot of people in the world that during the course of the movie, Maxwell Lord grants a lot of wishes to a lot of people, and there was a lot of interesting wishes that were granted, in particular in the Middle East. Some of those, I love the fact that a Middle Eastern leader, Maxwell Lord, granted him his wish, and a giant wall came up and surrounded him and granted him the land that he always wanted, but the price he had to pay was that he had to give up all his oil. I thought that was very interesting, and but I also thought it could have led to more. It could have led to more action sequences, and it was I found it particularly curious. And let me ask you this. One of the things I want to talk about right now is the different powers that Wonder Woman has in this movie, because while they didn't have a lot of action sequences, Wonder Woman acquired new powers in this movie that she's never had in the comic books. In particular, she had the power of invisibility. Like, she has the power, the invisible, she could make anything invisible. And I thought that was interesting. That's how she made the jet invisible. She got the power to make things invisible from her father Zeus, which I thought was really an interesting take. And and I'm just curious. And there was some other power she had with respect to the Magic Lasso. Spike, did any of that
Well,
surprise you, and did you think it worked?
I actually had a discussion earlier about the lasso thing, and how she rides the lightning. But being that she's the daughter of Zeus, I thought like, Zeus is the god of thunder and basically everything else, and the lasso was made by Athena. So I don't see it not working, and making like the invisible plane invisible for a little bit. I didn't mind. And I understand the campiness will take a lot of people out of the movie, because it's it's not something that it's in our modern comic book films. If you watch, like, my favorite ones are, Winter Soldier, which is a very gritty, very realistic type of comic book movie. People thought that the comic book movie of today were above campiness, but I don't think that campiness is necessarily a bad thing. You just have to make it work. and I think it works. If you're not expecting, the Chris Nolan type of Batmanish comic book movie with all the realism and stuff, and I think it works because at the end of the day, both movies have very very deep themes that you can relate to. You can do it the campy way, like Wonder Woman 1984 does it, or you can do it the Dark Knight way. It's just two takes to serve you a message.
Yeah, and I think it actually worked too, surprisingly well, which surprised me a little bit. Chillmonger asks, "How does the jet become invisible in comics?" The jet in the comic books, Wonder Woman's jet is invisible because it's created by the Amazons. That's essentially it. And in fact, I guess in modern lore now, you could attribute it to a special metal now, and which is Amazonian, is a form of metal, and I think that contributes to the invisibleness of the plane. But in any event, in the movies, the fact that Wonder Woman can access another godlike power, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was unnecessary, but I thought it was interesting. The other thing, Spike, that I noticed was she never used a shield or a sword really in the movie. They focused on the magic lasso, and the use of the magic lasso is, and I want to give a shout out to Magic Lasso herself, who is a person in the chat. She says, if it wasn't for the invisible jet, the Super Friends cartoon, Aquaman would never be able to get anywhere. It was his Uber. Yes, it was. Yes.
That's very true. That's very true.
That's very true. So yes, Wonder Woman, she does have her uses other than just, looking good and being very good with a sword, shield, and magic lasso. But one of the things that I thought was a little inconsistent in the movie, but it managed to work, and maybe I'm nitpicking, Spike, but I'll ask the people in the chat and yourself, Spike. I found it interesting that at one point in the movie, Wonder Woman actually says to Steve Trevor that the lasso can make you see the truth, and then she uses the lasso to help Steve Trevor see Asteria, the person that was originally in the golden armor. And I thought that's a new power for the magic lasso, because the magic lasso has never been able to see someone else's memories or some ephemeral memories. That was new. And I also thought it was odd that she's fighting the cheetah, and the cheetah is touching the magic lasso, but yet the cheetah doesn't see the truth. The cheetah herself never saw the truth. She never saw through her own illusions of what her wishes were doing. And I thought maybe that was a little bit odd. And finally, go ahead.
Okay. No. Finish. No, finish so we can unpack everything.
Yeah, well, finally, I thought it was a very inspired bit of storytelling when the way they brought the mythology of the magic lasso into the modern world. I thought it was interesting because the magic lasso has to physically touch someone in order to work on them. And the magic lasso, in the continuity of the movie, Diana in the movie makes it clear that the magic lasso has the power in and of itself. Wonder Woman herself doesn't give the magic lasso the power, which is not always the case in the comics. But in the movie, the magic lasso has the power of truth and to help people see the truth, but it needs to physically touch people. And I thought it was interesting that they used broadcast particles through the broadcast, through the broadcasting of Maxwell Lord, and that the magic lasso, by touching Maxwell Lord, and Maxwell Lord then broadcasting to the world, that the entire world was indirectly touched by the lasso. I thought that was a very sort of interesting, inspired way of telling that story. And I must say, it very much enhances the power of the magic lasso, that it can touch so many people through broadcast particles almost. I think that was the actual word that the president used when he was talking to Maxwell, like broadcast particles. I thought that was a unique way to get everyone in the world united, so that when Diana spoke with them at the end, they could all hear her voice. And I thought there was some inconsistency there, but yet at the same time, it helped everyone in the world see the truth, except, oddly enough, Barbara Minerva, which I thought was interesting. But Spike, do you think the Magic Lasso was portrayed in a consistent manner in the movie, or am I just reading too much into it?
Well, I think that that last thing you said about Cheetah, she was already like dead at that point. So I mean that's why Wonder Woman got to Maxwell Lord. But I think the lasso of truth is more. It's used like this because it's thematical. It's the movie is about truth versus lies, and you have this stone that was forged by the god of lies, and you have the lasso of truth, and I think that's what they were playing into with the lasso. That I think that's why they were using it more than anything else. She didn't use the bracelets either, and she was. And she was shot at a lot. I thought that was interesting, but yeah, it's very out there, and I would agree that some stuff of the lasso or the broadcast stuff is it does take a little suspension of disbelief, but I think for the tone of the movie and the message itself, it works just fine. I mean, well, what's more important, to deliver the message or to make this scene work a little bit more realistically? That's what I would ask, because there's stuff like that. For example, in the Shazam film is not that away from this type of campiness or this type of feel good movie, and people didn't criticize him for charging iPhones with with the Shazam thunders,
Yeah, yeah. Are you still there?
Yeah. I think it's mostly thematically. I think it's sorry. I think it's mostly about the truth and how. Sorry, I'm having a little cough. It's about the truth and fighting lies and stuff. I think that's the overall theme with the lasso.
Yeah, I think that I think that the use of the lasso. I think it's funny. I'm doing I'm doing a live stream with Dark Knight Nation and Professor Bill at Comic Book University, and we're going to be talking about Wonder Woman, and it's probably not going to be a live stream. It's going to be in a podcast, probably a month down the road. But we talk at length about the Magic Lasso, and the Magic Lasso has had many names. It's been called the Golden Perfect, the Lasso of Truth, the Magic Lasso, the Golden Lariat. It's been called many different things, and it's interesting how much it's used in this movie, and to great effect. And uh, I think everything in this movie comes down to that nature between truth and illusion. And wow, right now, it really speaks to the modern time. We needed a movie that was filled with hope and that gave people made people feel good. And this was a feel good movie. I felt good at the end of this movie. I thought this had an emotional impact. I thought this worked really well. My favorite scene is when she says goodbye to Steve Trevor for one final time, and she says she doesn't want to let him go. She says, I can't say goodbye, and he says, you don't have to. I'm already gone. And I think those words say so much, because it says so much about all our wishes and illusions. We never had them to begin with. They're all illusions. And so letting them go, it doesn't mean that your life is over. It just means that you got to move forward and keep pushing forward. And when Wonder Woman renounces her wish, she literally catches the wind with her magic lasso. I mean, she literally catches the wind and then ultimately ends up roping lightning itself, like she did in the preview. I thought it was symbolically the way this movie took our metaphors and made them real in a campy and yet fantastical way. I thought it really worked well. It dragged on a little bit, this movie. It could have had a few more action scenes, but I thought overall it worked pretty well.
Yeah, I think compare. Sorry, comparing both movies, both Wonder Woman movies, I would say that it's not that the first one was better than this one or anything like that. They're just different type of movies. You have this very grim and gritty World War One action tale, and you have this 1984 very colorful uh, fable. It's basically like a fable with its own lesson and stuff to learn with Wonder Woman, and I think they're both just great. I mean, if you feel like watching an action movie with Wonder Woman, watch the first one. If you want to have a feel good time with a little bit of comedy and a lot of message, watch the 1984 one.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. We have now two the Wonder Woman for all seasons.
Yeah,
Now it's not just Superman.
that's an excellent point. And one of the things I want to give Patty Jenkins credit for is exactly what you said. One of the criticisms of Wonder Woman in the comic books, why she's so elusive a character to get a handle on, is that there are so many interpretations of Wonder Woman. Patty Jenkins has taken one version of Wonder Woman for the first movie, and we're seeing a very different side of Wonder Woman, or at least a different aspect of her character and mythology in the second movie. And she does a really good job of sort of meshing those together in a way that actually works. And there's a comment here by Gary Gates that I need to address because it's going all over the internet that Diana raped a man. Now, what does Gary mean by that? And I'll let him comment. He said it's certainly awkward. For several days, this unnamed guy loses control of his body while Steve Trevor's soul possesses this guy's body, and Diana and him, of course, they have their adventures together, and obviously they engage in some relations. So the whole movie they were risking this man's life without letting him choose to get involved. I think that's the part where you got to maybe let go. I think they try to address that at the end where Diana actually speaks to the guy whose body Steve Trevor had inhabited, and she's probably, you got to wonder what she's thinking when she's looking at him, because she just had sex with the guy multiple times and the guy had no idea. I mean, don't get me wrong, Spike, if somebody wants to use my body to have sex with Wonder Woman, I'm game. Go ahead. I give my consent. But
Yeah, I'll
still,
have that on writing.
I don't think the guy's going to complain, but I suppose he probably should have been asked. But maybe Amazons don't ask. Who knows? Maybe that'll be in the third movie. The Amazons will come and have some fun with a bunch of men. I don't know, but
That's called snooze.
It's called what?
People who watch Futurama are gonna know what I'm talking about. Snooze when Fry and other guys go to an Amazonian planet and they need to have sex with the giant Amazons. It's called snooze.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's good. Well, there's. I can go through some of the comments here in the chat. I've been trying to get some of them.
About what you said, I think there's a little misunderstanding, and I don't know if I'm wrong or other people are wrong, but I think that all that the stone made at the end was banished. It didn't happen. So I've seen a lot of complaints about Maxwell Lord not being really punished for all he did, and we have the rape situation thing, and I think basically what happens is that those things never happened.
It's interesting. I never. Spike, you might be 100% correct on that. I only managed to watch it once. I'm going to watch it again. Maybe was I'll ask the people in the chat, guys. Those of you who watched the movie, I hope you did because we're spoiling it for you. At the end of the movie, did everybody forget what happened? Was it as if nothing happened? I got the impression. I never got that impression, but frankly, Spike, you make a lot of sense.
They forget. I'm not saying they forget, but the things that happened vanished. So people are remembering stuff that didn't happen at the end of the day. And that's also how I would explain that people don't remember Wonder Woman existing in 1984 in the other movies, because these things that happen through the miracles of the stone just were they puffed out of existence.
Well, yeah, I guess maybe that I'll have to rewatch it because I wasn't. I never really got that indication. Although it's not that interpretation is not inconsistent with what I saw. I just never really thought about it that way. The other thing you said before, did Cheetah die? Was she killed?
I don't think she was
I don't.
killed, but she was defeated. She was defeated.
Yeah, she was defeated. I thought it was interesting that she was electrocuted because I thought she gained Wonder Woman's powers because she wanted to have all the power and strength, and I was surprised that mere electrocution could take Cheetah out. And then she woke up, and then she never actually renounced her wish, and so, but I
Oh,
don't
the
think.
thing is that she got two wishes because the first wish she asked, she wished to the stone itself to become like Wonder Woman, but then she asked Maxwell Lord when he had the power to be her own type of strong female thing,
Yeah,
something
that's
so original that
yeah. I think Chillmonger makes a point. Maybe it's like Flashpoint, where maybe things are just sort of reset again. Uh, maybe that is the case. So maybe Wonder Woman isn't guilty of rape anymore because it never actually happened.
yeah, I think so. That's my inclination, at least.
Um, so this Magic Lasso asks, so do Diana and Barbara still work together when this movie is over? It's kind of awkward. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good question. Or how do you go to work? And yeah, that's actually a really good question. I One has to wonder how that's going to work. But you know, you made a point, Spike, when you talked about how this movie almost, if in order for this movie to fit into Justice League in the continuity of the DC universe, people have to forget what happened with Wonder Woman in the 1980s. But yet, I thought Patty Jenkins. I heard that she was on record as saying that this is its own continuity, but maybe
Yeah,
I'm mistaken on that. Do people in the chat? Am I wrong on that? Does this movie? Do you think this movie is this in continuity or out of continuity, or maybe you don't care? Maybe people just don't give a damn. I got the impression that it was sort of its own. It's sort of like a hybrid, and maybe Flashpoint is a good way of describing it. But I do know
yeah,
this.
no,
Go ahead.
I do agree. And I think that's the best way to take these movies. I mean, the first one wasn't really connected into the DCU continuity either. It was just like the First World War tale, and now we have the monkey's paw version with Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And I think they work because they are not focused on tying up a universe. They are focused on being their own story and their own movie.
Uh, yeah. Well, uh, I agree. And as Ed Brewer says, they will cherry pick continuity. Yes, I'm a continuity guy, and it doesn't bother me that this isn't in continuity. I just wanted a movie. I wanted them to get it right, and I actually think that they made it work. Skip and Tosh says Maxwell Lord uh, asked Cheetah what she wished for after he had made himself the wish granter. So one wish from the stone and one wish from Maxwell. That's actually a good point. So Cheetah made one wish from the stone. The difference is that this when Maxwell became the had the power to grant wishes. Maxwell Lord, he had the power then to indicate what the price was for granting the wish, whereas before it was the stone that created the consequence. At least that was my understanding. Was that your understanding too, Spike?
Yeah, like it wasn't like a consequence, more like a pay up. Like I grant you this, but you give me that. Very conscious. Yeah, like you said, basically.
Yeah. Um, Sweet Exorcist 7 says these wishes could set up whole new set of villains for future DCEU movies. Um, they could if this actually happened. If I'm wondering if in order for Cheetah to be in future movies, if everything was undone, that would undo the Cheetah. But if we want to use the Cheetah in future movies, she can't be undone. So that's why I'm thinking I'm assuming that all the wishes were undone, but and but when Maxwell Lord renounced the wish, since he was the stone itself, I thought all the wishes that were granted would be undone. But then why would everybody need to renounce their wish if the only person that needed to renounce their wish was Maxwell Lord? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't there all this talk was made about everybody in the world renouncing their wish in order to save the world and save each other and to save Armageddon and the world being civilization being destroyed. And yet I don't know if that was necessary. I thought the only person that needed to renounce their wish was Maxwell Lord himself. But I don't know. Am I wrong on that, Spike? Do you know where I'm coming from?
That was my take. That when Maxwell Lord basically renounced his wish for the sake of his son, that reality became what it always was, and the balance was restored. That's my take on the movie.
Yeah, because I have to admit I don't like the idea of I don't like the Duke Ek Machina of the Wish Stone. I'm not a big fan of those plot devices, which is why I'm so impressed that it actually worked in this movie. I I really did not like the idea of a wishing stone. I would have preferred the traditional origin for Cheetah. I think it's better, and I think Cheetah should have gotten her own movie, to be very blunt. But frankly, I want to give props to Patty Jenkins because she really did make this movie her own. Patty Jenkins has said in past interviews that in the original Wonder Woman movie, she was not a big fan of the third act. That was more the studios wanting that third act action. And so she got to do whatever she wanted in this movie. And clearly the third act in this movie, there was action in it, but it was definitely more emotional gravitas than an action scene per se. And of course, opinions will vary as to whether or not it worked. And yeah, so let me tell you this. But how did you like the ending, Spike? Did it work for you the way Wonder Woman won the day? Did that work for you?
Yes, I think so because a lot of people like the flashy action. And I do too. I love movies like, Dread and movies like John Wick and stuff. But at the end of the day, when you're telling a big old story, what you remember are the emotional punches. Like, uh, for example, when I think about the death of Superman, I don't think of this Lodge Fist. I think of Funeral for a Friend and the implications of Superman dying. And there's no punches in there. It's just people talking.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Sometimes talking heads it can work. And sometimes, just having those character moments are really important. And one thing that this movie managed to do was to have those character moments between Diana and Steve Trevor, between Maxwell Lord and his son Alistair. When Alistair at the end, it's quite emotional when he tells his dad, uh, you know, he just wants his son to be proud of him, and his son doesn't care about needing to be proud of his dad. He loves him. And there's just some of the lessons in this movie, they're so simple. They're just basic family values, basic straightforward family values. It's about love, it's about care ethics. One thing that Wonder Woman has is that Wonder Woman has a very interesting ethical approach to dealing with villains. If she has to, she'll take out a villain. If she has to, she'll even potentially kill someone. She did that in the comic books with Maxwell Lord, and she did that in this movie with the cheetah by electrocuting the cheetah, which there was no way that Wonder Woman could have known that Cheetah would have survived electrocution, but she did what had to be done. And so she tried using compassion. She tries the ways of peace, but if that doesn't work, she's not afraid to be the warrior, and that's what came out in this movie at the end, and it actually worked fairly well. And
Yeah,
I just want to make a quick note. Sweet Exorcist 7 says that Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot are doing a watch along on Twitter in 1 hour. Maybe they can answer some of these burning questions. So yeah, check that out. So the timing of this stream is good. So we can finish when we're done here. We can wait a half hour and then watch the stream between Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot. Thank you, Sweet Exorcist 7, for saying that.
yeah, that sounds very cool, actually.
Yeah. I think I'll do that because I rented it for 48 hours, so I can still watch it along with Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot. So it's going to be interesting to get their perspective on some of the scenes here because I tell you what, this, like I said, this is a movie that this is not a Marvel movie. You know, if you're going into this movie and you're expecting, you know, a bunch of fisticuffs and a bunch of craziness, you know, I can see some people being disappointed, but even the use of the lasso, the magic lasso almost had a life of its own. And as corny as that was, it actually seemed to work. And, you know,
It,
I don't know, how
it
did
was
you view
very
that?
creative. It was very creative the way they used the lasso. I mean, campy or not, it took imagination, and I've never seen anything like that in comics or cartoons or whatever with the lasso.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And like I said, the magic lasso itself is has such a rich mythology. It's been interpreted different ways. And one thing I found it curious that they never really used the lasso. She never used it to identify any lies that people had. She uses the lasso to help heal people. It's the magic lasso attached to Maxwell Lord who's broadcasting to the earth. It's the magic lasso that is essentially helping to heal the world. And so even though the magic lasso is in fact at times a weapon, it also is a healer. The magic lasso, the golden lasso, helps heal the world. So it's not just a weapon that ties people up and gets helps you see through illusion. It's also a healer, and that played to great effect. I just want to say, as Skip and Tosh commented, I enjoyed that this was a Diana movie, and Patty also carved out her own space with this film. Felt warm and good and hopeful, more than I can say about most DC comics and most DCEU movies. And yeah, it's definitely a movie that played it. It played. Patty Jenkins wasn't afraid to express herself. Uh,
Yeah, and the sad thing, I think, and I don't think it's through any fault of her, but the COVID situation, man, it's a mess how to watch this film right now. Like, I think the only way to watch it in Mexico is in the theaters, but the theaters are now closed. So that really gives me like a hard time thinking about this movie deserved a better, watching a more stable watching way to watch it.
yeah, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I was frustrated. I tried to get a VPN first, and then I gave up on that, and then I just decided to rent it. And I mean, it cost me $30 Canadian to rent, but frankly, I would have paid that going to a movie anyway. So I rented it for $30. I got it for 48 hours. The wife and I threw, we put some popcorn in the microwave, grabbed a ginger ale and a Coke, and we just sat back and started to watch it. And yeah, it was a it was a good time. Um,
Are you going to watch it with your kid?
Audrey, she's Audrey just turned 6 years old, but she doesn't have the patience for it, and she lost interest in it pretty quick. Um, so I don't. Maybe other girls are different, but yeah, my wife actually my wife actually got bored. She kind of lost interest in it early on. She thought it sort of dragged on herself, which I thought was interesting, and I hope that that's not everybody's experience. I actually enjoyed it, but this is a long movie, and you really got to you. And I also thought maybe it was the TV I watched it on, but I thought the sound in this movie was off too. At the end, when Wonder Woman was talking, everything was so loud, and then all of a sudden it was almost as if she wasn't raising her voice, but Maxwell Lord could still hear her. And then they did something with the sound, and it was odd. Did that bother you at all, the sound, or was that just me?
No, I actually didn't have like any dragging issues when I watched it with my cousin at the theater. We were just like it went like water, and I didn't notice any sound problems. Not
Yeah.
not not a single one.
Yeah, I guess, and I think that was intentional on Patty Jenkins' part. Frankly, at the end there, because and they did the same thing at the end of the first movie. They had Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman talking about at the end, Wonder Woman couldn't hear what Steve Trevor was saying, and neither could the audience. And then it was revealed at the end what he had said about, I can save today, but you can save tomorrow, and you can save the future. And so it was that playing with the sound. It worked for the first movie, and maybe it worked for a lot of people in the second here. It did have some emotional impact, the ending here. And again, I really thought I thought it was nice how Wonder Woman spoke to the world through the magic lasso. And it seemed a little bit corny because I can't believe that many people would renounce their wish. You would think there would be more people would be like Cheetah that would refuse to renounce their wish. But it's a feel-good movie, and during 2020, a pandemic, where we're always focusing, it seems, on the negative of people, and everyone's so angry and upset this year, and so many people are experiencing hardship. And it's nice to see a movie where everybody chose the higher ground, and everybody chose in this movie to embrace the higher, the better part of their angels, better nature of their angels. And yeah, overall, this movie worked.
Yeah, I think so too. I think in my review, it came out like an 8.3. Like, go watch it, go have fun. It probably won't be the best movie you ever see, but it's a pretty solid, good time with a good message.
Yeah.
And also in the last part with the wishes, I don't think people had to give up their wish when Maxwell Lord stopped being the wishing stone or whatever. I think there was just no power making the wishes come true anymore. So everything went back to normal.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right. And Sweet Exorcist 7 says, I'm hoping there's a director's cut to this movie. Well, as you also said, Sweet Exorcist, in about an hour's time, we can all go to Twitter and watch Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot comment and do a live watch along of the Wonder Woman movie 1984. That seems pretty cool. And thanks for letting us know. So Spike, we're at the 1 hour mark. So let's just talk about our final thoughts about this movie. And don't just give me your final thoughts, Spike, but tell me what you'd like to see for a third Wonder Woman movie, since Patty Jenkins appears to be alluding that that's going to be happening as well.
Well, my final thoughts about the movie is that I thought it was a great, charming movie that brings back a lot of that innocence that has been missing in comic book movies for a while now, superhero movies specifically. And it was very colorful. I really appreciated the settings. I really appreciated the character chemistry, even between Kristen Wiig and Gal Gadot. I think it worked, and the characters are memorable. I think that it's a very unique movie, even though it alludes to the work of Richard Donner and stuff. And I really enjoyed it, and I wish it wasn't as divisive because it doesn't have a lot of action, and I wish people could watch it easily because I think it's a like you said, in the middle of the pandemic and all this stuff, it's a nice thing to watch and put your mind in some other things, more positive things for a while. And regarding a third Wonder Woman film, what I would like to see about a third Wonder Woman film, maybe now that we have seen her in an extremely realistic environment and a campy environment, maybe we can go very mythological and very, fantastic in the last part, go all the way Lord of the Rings type of movie.
I think that would be an excellent idea. Have her go more warrior, maybe full warrior and warrior diplomat, as opposed to what she did in this movie. So we can get yet another side of Diana. I think that would be an excellent idea. And I just, my final thoughts on the movie is this movie worked. I want to thank Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot and Chris Pine and Kristen Wiig and the entire cast. This movie worked well. I love the opening sequence. So did my daughter. The opening sequence of this movie, it felt like a Disney princess movie, which might sound a little bit corny, but it just, man, it just put a smile on my face. That opening 10 minutes was just a joy to behold and a joy to watch. And that young Diana, I would love for Disney, or not Disney, but Warner Brothers, to put out a young Wonder Woman series of have a young Wonder Woman TV show with that young girl. And again, she's played by, her name is Lily Aspel, that young actress. Have her be a young Diana, and I think it would just work so well. This movie worked. Paulo Acosta says God War on Olympus, maybe with aliens like the Dominators of the country. Yeah, go full action in the third movie, Paulo. All action. Yeah. This is actually a potential new formula for a sequel, for a 3-part movie. Each one of these movies deals with a different aspect of Wonder Woman's mythology. We start off with the warrior, her origin. We delve into the peaceful diplomatic side of her in this second movie, dealing with Wonder Woman's access to truth, her connection her connection to the Magic Lasso, and helping the world see through lies and deception. And maybe the third movie can be more of the warrior aspect and what she brings to a more aggressive humanity. So, wow, so much to say, guys. We're gonna end this now. Skip and Tosh says it was great to see Linda Carter too. That's one thing I won't spoil for people. Linda Carter is in it, but where she is in the movie, you're gonna have to watch and see. I thought that was a brilliantly done, the way they incorporated Linda Carter. They did it in such a respectful way, and one that really, I think, builds on the mythology of Wonder Woman. Spike, what did you think of Linda Carter's appearance?
There's 2 appearances, and the first one I didn't even know until the last. I mean, I don't want to talk about it, but it was charming. I mean, it went with the spirit of the story, and I think that last couple scenes with Wonder Woman and with Linda Carter I think they were shot after everything, because I think they were put there because the movie was coming out in the Christmas season.
Yeah.
Those are the only scenes that take place in somewhat winter season. So I think they were put there, but they work. They don't seem out of place, and they add to the charm of the movie.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, guys, I just want to say thank you to everybody in the chat: Skip and Tosh, Ed Brewer, Magic Lasso, Sweet Exorcist 7, Paulo Costa, Tehillim. I think, did I miss anybody? I think most of you guys I got. Thank you so much. Chillmonger, thanks for showing up. Ed Brewer. Yeah, thank you so much for showing up, guys. And with that, I am signing off. Shout out to Spike. Thanks for showing up, Spike. And Spike, you reviewed this movie,
Thank you for
right?
having me, man. I'm sorry, what?
Spike, you reviewed this movie. And can you tell people where they can find you?
I reviewed it at geeksandgamers.com, and they can find me on at Panels Cutters on Twitter. It's my comic book studio or whatever.
Okay, well, I'm going to leave the link below once this posts on YouTube. I'm going to leave this link below on YouTube so you can go to Spike's review. And guys, thanks for showing up. And yeah, and until next time, guys, Comic Boom out.